If you're reading this letter, it means you didn't die in the fire that year." I froze. The crumpled letter was pulled from a layer of ash inside a scorched safe, hidden deep beneath the basement of an old house on the outskirts of the city. The handwriting, it was mine, from 10 years ago. But here's the thing. 10 years ago, this house never caught fire. My name is Ethan, currently the CEO of a tech company worth hundreds of billions of dong. But very few people know that I once grew up in a poor working-class neighborhood, eating instant noodles instead of rice, and watching my mother scavenge recyclable scraps late into the night just to pay for my father's hospital bills. When I was 20 years old, I wrote a letter and sealed it inside an old safe, vowing, "Only open this on your 30th birthday when you've changed your life." No one could have predicted that on the very day of that birthday, a mysterious fire would break out in my childhood home. The same house I believed had been abandoned. The police said it was faulty wiring, but I knew for a fact the electricity had been shut off 7 years earlier. Even stranger, the old safe somehow remained intact. And inside, the letter was there, yet it felt like someone had placed it in there. Recently, it wasn't just the first line that chilled me to the bone. Attached was a hand-drawn blueprint of an advanced tech project, something I was currently developing but had never shown to anyone. My childhood was a series of escapes, from my alcoholic father's beatings and from nights where my mother had to carry me through dark alleyways to find shelter. No one believed I'd ever become anything more than a failure. One of my middle school teachers once told me, "Ethan, you could be a top student if only you weren't so busy trying to survive every day." I swallowed my pride and learned, word by word, line by line of code, under the leaky roof of a rented room, all while dreaming of one day escaping the slum filled with curses and broken dreams. But the turning point of my life came in the form of a mysterious man who appeared on a rainy night. He handed me a notebook filled with programming blueprints for a financial software system, something he claimed would guarantee you'll never be poor again if you can build it. But there was one condition. I couldn't share it with anyone, not even my mother. I obeyed. For 3 years, I studied, experimented, failed, and tried again. While my friends graduated from college, I wandered from gig to gig, working odd jobs, freelancing code, until I finally released my first product, an intelligent personal budgeting app. I suspected my closest friend, Adrian, the only one who knew the password to my laptop, but I had no proof. He denied it, broke down crying, swore on everything. I stayed silent. Just a month later, a nearly identical app appeared on Google Play, under a different company's name. I was crushed. At one point, I considered ending it all, but then my mother was hospitalized again. Heart failure. I had to keep going. I had to start over. I returned to square one. This time, I taught myself about AI, blockchain, and the emerging tech trends that would explode 5 years down the line. I began building a new platform, True Budget, with a breakthrough feature, analyzing user emotions to deliver tailored financial advice. This time I told no one. Not Adrian, no one. Then he came back, saying the company had stolen both our efforts, that he too had been recast at the last minute by a shadowy investor. He begged for my forgiveness and made me an offer. Let's take them down together. I have a copy of the contract. I have evidence. I was forced to choose, trust the man who once betrayed me, or keep walking this road alone. If your mother had known the truth, she wouldn't still be alive today. Adrian said it, with eyes full of fear and a bitterness that almost sounded like guilt. I said nothing. The story he told sounded too wild to believe, that after my source code was stolen, he too was kicked from the project and warned he'd disappear if he ever spoke a word. But then, he showed me the proof, a secretly recorded video featuring the last person I ever expected to see. He was once the man who helped my family after my father passed, the one who lent me money when I was learning to code, the man my mother trusted enough to hand over her life savings. And yet, in the video, he smirked with satisfaction, speaking to another investor. That kid has no idea what he's holding. Taking it from him is like clearing trash off the road. My hands clenched into fists. My chest burned like fire. Adrian said he'd been forced out of the company after being put under 24/7 surveillance. It wasn't until he fled to his hometown that he dared to reach out to me again. He proposed we break into the old branch office, where the original source code was temporarily stored before being migrated to the new system. I hesitated. This was illegal. But if what he said was true, I needed to reclaim my dignity, my dream. That same night, I visited my mother for the first time in 3 months. She looked older, more fragile. I told her everything except what I was about to do. But then, unexpectedly, she told me something that shook me to the core. She said she had once suspected Mr. Victor. Right after my father's funeral, he had done everything he could to buy our family land for a pitiful price. When she refused, he turned hostile. No one believed her. There was no proof, but she was certain. He had something to do with my father's death. I could feel my blood boiling. You must live with integrity, no matter how deep the hatred, never become one of them. My mother said those words, her eyes red with emotion. I nodded. But deep down, I swore I'd take back everything, including justice. We finalized the plan in 3 days. Adrian still had an old key card that was somehow still active for access to the 5th floor, the server room. The plan at 3 a.m., during the guard shift change, when there would be a 10-minute window, we'd break in. I would enter through a side window, outside of the security camera range, while Adrian created a distraction. But when the time came, he didn't answer my call. No reply to my messages. It was like everything had fallen apart. Still, I went through with it, alone. At 3:02 a.m., I rappelled from the 4th floor of the building across the street. The window was locked, but I had brought an electronic lockpick. 45 seconds. Click. Open. I stepped into the freezing cold server room, my heartbeat pounding like war drums, and there it was, a hard drive labeled Version X, my source code. Hands trembling, I pulled it out and slipped it into an anti-static pouch. But just as I turned around, there he was. Adrian. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't have a choice. He held up his phone, streaming me live in a private mode. They offered me $2 billion if I could catch you red-handed, he said, his voice low, almost trembling. I lunged at him. We struggled. In the chaos, his phone slipped from his hand, hit the floor, and shattered. I kicked him away and dove for the window, sliding down to the 3rd floor rooftop. Pain shot through my entire body. I escaped, but my leg was badly injured. I spent 3 weeks in recovery. During that time, I dove deep into the hard drive, not just to recover the source code, but to uncover something more disturbing. A detailed list of money laundering transactions hidden within the app. The link between Mr. Victor and a black investment fund in Singapore. A forged contract bearing my name, used to steal the rights to my creation. I sent everything to an investigative journalist, a friend who had once helped me back in college. Within a week, the story exploded in national headlines. Mr. Victor was summoned for questioning, but the news reported he had vanished the day before trial. Interpol issued a warrant. I was officially recognized as the rightful owner of the product. True Budget came back, stronger than ever, this time backed by a philanthropic fund overseas. I pledged 20% of the profits to support underprivileged students in learning programming. Adrian was arrested. When I visited him once in prison, he looked at me and said just one thing. I'm sorry, but if I hadn't betrayed you, you wouldn't be standing here now. I didn't respond. All I knew was this. Without willpower, I would have been buried by my own past. Inside the recovered files was also the old notebook, the one given to me years ago by the mysterious man with the original blueprint. But on the final page, a new line had been added. You survived. Now it's time to help others like you. Keep surviving. My name is Lucas. Mommy said, I'm your son. I froze at the doorstep, still holding the cup of hot coffee I hadn't taken a single sip from. Standing before me was a boy, around 8 years old. Bright eyes, slightly curly hair, and little dimples when he smiled. Like a living echo pulled straight from memory. From someone I thought was lost forever. Claire, the only woman I had ever loved. And the one who vanished 10 years ago, without a word. I had searched for her everywhere, but she disappeared like smoke in the wind. And every time I asked about her, my mother would only shake her head and say, son, let her go. Now standing before me was a child with her eyes. If one day I'm no longer here, please don't hate me. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, but because I wanted to protect both you and our child from someone who's been watching me from the shadows. I read that letter so many times the edges had worn thin. Hundreds of questions spiraled in my head. Who was watching her? Why did she have to disappear? Why tell me now? I asked a hacker friend to investigate. The results shook me. Claire had once worked part-time at an underground finance firm run by none other than Mr. Victor. She had discovered documents related to my father and was planning to go to the police. But then she was forced to vanish, or she and the child would disappear forever. I brought Lucas to live with my mother. He was polite, brilliant at math, and, most astonishing of all, had an uncanny passion for coding. Watching Lucas handle a laptop and analyze basic algorithms sent chills down my spine. My blood, my son, a young prodigy slowly emerging. If you truly want to protect the boy, never let him know about Project Reverie. That was the name of a classified file I had found buried deep in the old hard drive. A file so heavily encrypted I'd never managed to break it. Until now, I'd left it untouched for nearly a year. But that warning changed everything. After 48 sleepless hours, I cracked 2 layers of encryption. Inside were a series of video clips, secretly recorded, extracted from personal surveillance cameras. Each clip captured a moment, moments from my life, from my mother's, from Claire's. Even a recording of me at 12, sitting beside my father's coffin. Using AI facial recognition, the clips were spliced together into a haunting documentary of my entire life, edited by someone unseen. Whoever did this hadn't just stolen my technology, they had stolen my memories. Then a new email appeared. No subject. Attached, a 10-second video. A white room, a man wearing a blank white plastic mask, staring straight into the camera. A distorted voice. You disrupted the plan, but the game has only just begun. I decided to move Lucas and my mother somewhere safe. At the same time, I began planning how to track down whoever was behind Project Reverie. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed help, a top-tier hacker, and I knew exactly who was capable and desperate enough to help. I filed for permission to visit the prison, to offer Adrian a deal, support the investigation in exchange for a reduced sentence. When I showed him the video of the masked man, Adrian went pale. He froze, then whispered, "No, that can't be. That guy's supposed to be dead." Adrian stammered, eyes wide and unblinking. I gripped his hand through the glass of the prison visiting room. "Who?" I asked. After a long pause, he choked out, "Your cousin. His name is Marcus." I went numb. I vaguely remembered my mother mentioning Marcus once or twice. My uncle's son. She said he had drowned at the age of 17 when I was only 6. But me? I couldn't recall a single image of him. No face, no memory, nothing. I asked my mother. She went quiet, then began to cry. "You had an accident when you were 7. The doctor said you might forget things. Permanently. The return of a ghost." Marcus had once been a tech prodigy, the first in our extended family to earn a full scholarship in AI from the US. But before leaving the country, he abruptly dropped out and disappeared. A year later, his body was supposedly found floating in a river, or so my mother said. But if Marcus was alive, if he was the masked figure behind Project Reverie, then maybe everything I knew about my past was a script written in advance. Adrian told me that years ago, he'd heard about a project called EchoMind, a technology designed to store and simulate human memory using deep learning algorithms. The project was shut down for ethical reasons. It could be used to erase or implant false memories in anyone. Marcus had led that team and had himself been erased. I made a choice to reactivate Project Reverie, not to destroy it, but to reclaim myself. I created an AI model of my 6-year-old self, running inverse memory simulations in hopes of recovering parts of my lost neural data. The simulation ran for 36 hours straight. When it was done, the AI began to reconstruct an old conversation, pieced together from trace audio signatures buried deep in my subconscious. Marcus, why does our family always fight? Because no one dares to tell the truth, Ethan? Then I received a package, no sender. Inside, a plane ticket, a memory card, and a slip of paper. Meet me where all memories began. If you dare. I knew the place. The old riverside house where my father had once taught me how to ride a bike. I went, alone. The place was covered in dust, but the electricity still worked. Inside the room, dozens of monitors glowed, displaying neural scans of me, my mother, and Lucas. And then he appeared. Marcus. No mask. Thin, pale, eyes sharp like blades. You think you created True Budget? Number, I planted it in your subconscious when you were 6. My mind reeled. I had never dreamed of escaping poverty. That dream had been programmed into me. I screamed, "Why? Why would you do this to me?" Marcus replied, "Because I believe a person can be guided, engineered, to become anyone, even a genius. And you were the proof. But you broke the script the moment you started asking questions." I couldn't accept it. I charged forward, shattered the glass, and wrestled him to the ground. In the chaos, the lab's self-destruct system was triggered. I managed to grab the main data core and ran. Seconds later, the lab exploded behind me. He erased his own mind, using the very technology he created. He died as a blank slate. Was it the end or the beginning? I brought the data drive home. Inside was everything related to EchoMind, but I never released it. I buried it under layers of near impenetrable encryption because I knew if this technology fell into the wrong hands, there would be no such thing as human will anymore. Lucas, my son, still spent his days coding, dreaming of the future. I watched him and wondered, are his dreams truly his own? Or were they planted in him the same way mine once were? I didn't have an answer. There are memories that shouldn't be reopened, but there are also those that must be preserved, so we remember who we are. I stood on the TEDx stage, invited to share my entrepreneurial journey. In front of me, hundreds of young faces, eyes full of hope and admiration. They knew me as the founder of True Budget, the app that had helped millions escape poverty through intelligent financial planning. But they didn't know I was the result of an experiment. And today I had been invited to unveil EchoMind, a technology capable of rewriting memories, shaping thought, and creating both geniuses and monsters. I held the USB drive containing the final version. One plug and the world would know everything. But then, right before the talk, I received one last email from Marcus, scheduled to send after his death. If you're reading this, I've already erased myself, but I'm leaving you the final choice. Not for revenge, but to see if you're truly free. If you reveal EchoMind, the world will celebrate you as the father of the next revolution in human cognition, but you may also create more Ethans with no choice of their own. If you delete it, no one will ever know, but your son will grow up with real memories. Choose. I looked toward the front row, where my mother sat. She smiled and nodded. No words were needed. I understood. I plugged in the USB. The screen lit up with the EchoMind logo. Hundreds of eyes locked on me. I opened the first slide, not a demo, not dazzling algorithms, just a faded, blurry photograph. My father, my mother, me, and a young man standing behind us, Marcus. I told the whole truth about the technology, about a life that had been guided, about the pain of no longer knowing what parts of your mind are truly yours. And finally I said, I could change the world with a few lines of code, but today I choose not to. Because a world without real memories is a world without humanity. I erased all of EchoMind's source code, right there on stage. Silence fell. Then came the applause, not for the technology, but for the choice. 6 months later, I transformed my company into a public foundation, dedicated to education, helping the poor, and promoting emotional intelligence in technology. Lucas, my son, won the National Children's Coding Championship. In his speech, he said something that brought tears to my eyes. I don't want to be as great as my dad. I just want to be myself. I can't say for sure that I'll never be manipulated again, because in each of us there are always voices whispering, be greater, be stronger, control everything. But I've learned one thing. True power is knowing when to stop. A true story, from poverty to a millionaire through willpower. It's not a story about money. It's a journey to rediscover identity, to realize that true success is living in alignment with your own memories. What would you have done in Ethan's place? Would you reveal Echo Mind or erase it like he did? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Life Tales for more powerful and inspiring real-life stories like this one.